This is the Columbia River Canoe Project video journal, presented by Navarro Canoe Company.
That you somehow want to float the entire length of the Columbia River Basin. You're going to start at a point near the Chamber of Commerce in Butte, Montana.
Hey, so we're out here today, finished up day 6. We're camping right outside of Missoula on the far end. So I wanted to give you guys a little rundown of how the last few days went. So day 1 started out, we got in our canoe. First time we had ever even had a chance to get in it was right at the launch. Got in, she floated beautifully. Only problem was we just didn't have much water. Despite it being high water, right here behind us, the Clark Fork's actually like over minor flood stage. But even in those conditions, Silverbow Creek just not that deep. So, you know, taking a 17-foot long canoe down a creek that's only at points 4 feet wide has some challenges, and at that it's maybe a foot deep most of the time. So we I'd be lying if I didn't say we had gotten some scrapes on her, so no doubt about that. We were also getting raked through the willows a lot when we were riding it, tough to make the turns. So we switched. We ended up walking the canoe for a lot of it, and we walked miles. We walked in the river pushing and pulling the canoe a lot, and then we even walked on the bank long lining the canoe quite a bit. In Durant Canyon we ran part of the whitewater section, and then when it came to the drop we tried to long line the canoe through about a 4-foot drop into a bit of a hydraulic, so the water's recirculating, right? And we swamped her. I'm not gonna lie to you, took that canoe, held onto the lines, and that hydraulic just ate her up. So she had a little bit of a bath to start with. We had a paddle come loose and float down, but we were able to pick it up in an eddy down the way after we got the canoe out. So after her little bath, she did fine. We got her emptied out, took her the rest of the way down to our campsite. We camped near Fairmont. The next day we got in, we had to walk some. We immediately started hitting beaver dams. Beaver dam after beaver dam after beaver dam. At one point we hit 5 beaver dams within a half hour. And so on most of them we had to actually get out, push the canoe through some terrible willows and through some deep mucky sediment that had built up behind those beaver dams. And we just kept with it. It was a little miserable through there. And after the beaver dams, we got into some tight turns. This creek between basically Warm Springs and Fairmont is just looping back on itself, completely looping back on itself. And we just battled them turns for a while. We'd chew river miles like crazy, but in land miles, we weren't going anywhere. So we made it to Warm Springs. We had our first portage around the Warm Springs pond on day 2. And then we camped right outside of Warm Springs. Day 3, we finished pushing through those big turns and swirls, and we got out towards Deer Lodge, and we then got hit with some bad upriver wind in the afternoon. You know, that's to be expected, but it was hefty. And we paddled through Deer Lodge for a ways and had a nice campsite there, a little close to the road, but nice campsite. After that, day 4 is where things really started to pick up. So we went from Deer Lodge through Drummond on day 4, began when the water was a little bit smaller, started having Gold Creek and some of those other tributaries come in, and we really started to speed up. It was wonderful. Made great time, started to have a few little rapid sections that were fun, getting us warmed up for some other stuff down the road. Made it through Drummond and had another pretty nice campsite. After that, things started to cook. We did a ton of miles. We went from Drummond all the way to outside of Missoula. We even stopped early. We stopped early so that we could meet with some folks from the Clark Fork Coalition and American Rivers to talk about basically the condition of the Clark Fork and how it's looking. And it was interesting to hear about some of the concerns on the lower Clark Fork, not just the upper Clark Fork where we had come from, but some of the areas we'll be going through. So after we had stopped there, we had these conversations. We learned a lot. We learned about some problems with the paper mill, and that there's an issue, the pulp mill, and there's an issue where in high water like we have now, that the river may basically erode underneath the pulp mill and release all of the chemicals into the river. So that needs to be something that really needs to be prevented, and more people need to know about. So we're happy to work with some of these nonprofits to spread the word. Today we did that actual spreading the word. We teamed up with them and did some media, talked to the Missoulian and talked to some of the news stations here about both what's going on, some of the concerns facing the Clark Fork, and some of the trips. And then after a late start, we ran through all of town and the confluence at the Blackfoot, and then all the way through the confluence at the Bitterroot. Today we had a really interesting section where we took a different route to avoid a diversion dam, so we didn't have to portage it, but it involved us going through what was an old log jam, and now the water's not moving very fast, and thousands of logs all piled up, and in basically what is now a pond. The water's not even moving, and it felt like Louisiana. Big muddy water everywhere, not moving, swampland, logs down everywhere. It was really, really kind of surreal. And we hauled the canoe over those logs, through them, and then we hit where the Bitterroot comes in for real and came down to here. And then we decided to camp here early because tomorrow we're gonna go with somebody who is being sent by actually those folks with American Rivers and the Clark Fork Coalition to show us the Smurfit pulp mill site and show us what's going on down there, some of the issues, and why those chemicals might be released into the Clark Fork if it's not properly cleaned up. So excited to go through that area with them and learn more about it and actually see it from the river. We're gonna have kind of a cool perspective that not a lot of people get to have. And then we're gonna continue on through. We're gonna get to the Alberton Gorge tomorrow night. And after that, it'll be our first real big day. We're gonna portage the whole gorge. It's too big right now to run, especially in a canoe, just far too big. So we have our first real big test, first real big portage, and nervous, but I'm excited. We're gonna really see how it goes, and hopefully it goes well. It's gonna be some suffer and it's gonna be some struggle, but I know we're gonna get through. So that's our first update, 6 days in, and right on schedule actually. We're right where we wanted to be, so we're looking good. And thank you guys all for coming and listening to me talk. Thanks for being part of the journey, and thanks for caring. So I appreciate you guys a lot, and I look forward to updating you more on what's going on as we get down there further. So enjoy the journey.
And jumping in canoes and trying to fly your ass over 1/3 of this country, I guess you've got to have some level of lack of intelligence for that.